Have you ever been sold a technology that didn't quite live up to expectations? Well, believe it or not, there are professionals who focus solely on making sure that this doesn't happen with a go-to-market strategy. Go-to-market, what the heck does that mean and why should I care? Well, you probably don't, but you should, because go-to-market is the plan or strategy that an organization uses to make sure that they can develop a competitive advantage in how they provide value to their customers. Now, don't click away. This matters to you, I promise. And to tell you why, I brought on the White Rabbit himself, Rafal, aka Head of Services Go-to-Market for Extra Hop Networks. Raf is going to tell you about his role, his path so far, and what you might want to consider if this sounds interesting to you. That said, I think Raf can explain it way better than I can.
So my job and this go-to-market role really is a packaging, positioning, and definition role. So, what are the services that we should be utilizing now? What should we be? Should we package them? How should we think about the way that customers consume? How do you make it simple? How do you make it effective? How do you make it less complex? Like all those things. That's me. So I don't have an ops job, meaning like I'm not sitting here worried about my staff's utilization. In fact, I don't really have staff. It's myself. But I'm an individual contributor, but I partner with the folks that lead the operational pieces, the delivery mechanism inside the services organization. It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of interesting work. But it's something I've really thoroughly enjoyed doing.
As a former customer now on the vendor side, I can't agree with Raf more. It's about making sure the customer gets value, but not every vendor does this well. We've all felt the stress of trying to force our work into some vendor's tool, but a go-to-market plan says, if we're going to make a tool, how do we make sure it fits as seamlessly as possible for the customer to drive real impact?
This role is pivotal in understanding what to deliver, how to deliver it, how to talk about it, how to package it, and how to make it relevant to your customers. So it really is the sharp end of the pointy poker stick when it comes to the services strategy.
How to make it relevant to your customers. A go-to-market strategy puts serious effort into understanding the customer's needs and making sure that makes it into the product. And this works way better than pulling a shiny widget off the shelf, painting it some new color, and throwing it out on the marketplace with everyone else's shiny widgets. So what leads someone into a role like this one?
I have a couple of things that my brain works in ways that get me very, I think make me on point for this type of role. And first, it's important to know that I tend to look at things from a broader picture. I've been on the customer side. I've been on the vendor side. I've worked in services organizations. I've worked in product organizations. So I understand the ecosystem. And for me, where I think it makes it a natural, easy fit is taking the big picture look at it, trying to make things simple. If I'm a customer, what do I need? What's the easiest way for me to understand it? How do I take the jargon out of it? How do I simplify everything from explaining it to selling it to delivering it to going, hey, that was valuable. Somebody should do that again, right? All the way through. So I tend to think that way. I tend to think kind of strategically in terms of business alignment, in terms of kind of down the road. What are we doing today? Great. How does that align with the vision of what we want to be as a company 2, 3, 5 years down the road? And I think all that makes it quite relevant to the way that we operate here. So I think that's probably the biggest alignment there.
I like a Lego metaphor. Engineers build the castle. Support helps you rebuild the castle after the cat knocked it over. And go-to-market roles make sure that the right kind of Lego set ends up in the hands of the person it will resonate with, and that when they open the box, it contains everything they need for success.
The Lego set for me is the entire universe of things that we could do for a customer to get them uniquely happy with the thing that they bought.
So the castle gets properly built, the purchaser is satisfied with their purchase, and one day they walk back onto the Lego aisle for more of your pieces. But how that castle gets built matters too.
There's a number of different things you can do to acquire a vehicle. You can buy the kit and put the car together yourself. You can get help with it. You can just go buy it at the dealer, or you can get the service, which basically is like a car and a chauffeur, right? Or the ride hailing apps that we have today, like anywhere in between there, and trying to figure out how to make sure that as a buyer, all along that spectrum, you deliver something of value to delight and enable the customer of the purchase, right? Very quickly.
To keep the metaphor going, he's right. I can buy some wood and some paint, and I can whittle out Legos and make my own Lego group. I promise I will not. Which is kind of like buying a server and loading up all of my own code to serve an application. I can purchase a Lego box and put it all together myself, and that sounds kind of like how most networking vendors sell their technology. Or I can go online and I can buy the castle pre-built and already glued together, and that's kind of like most black box appliances or SaaS offerings. And each of those comes with their own specific challenges and benefits. But Raf points out how important it is that the customer quickly get value after their purchase.
People tend to dramatically undervalue the I'll call it, rapidness of the time to value. How quickly you can go, I bought this, to wow, I love this thing. It's doing exactly what I bought it for. I think that's what services does in a well-built security strategy. It helps customers get from that, okay, I understand, I bought this thing, to I love it. It's doing exactly what I need it to. And then the further step is, wow, I'm finding new and exciting ways I didn't even think this thing could help me.
Okay, I'm convinced. That sounds pretty cool. So how do I get a job like this?
Nobody's going to start there quickly. There's no shortcut to it. I would advise to go work in a variety of different places. I think the thing that a lot of us skip is we just want to get to the cool job later as fast as possible. I think we all should spend some time working on the customer side, the implementation side, the buyer side, to understand what it is to be a buyer, what it is to implement the things that vendors sell. I think you should work in different parts of your, you should be a consultant for a while, you should be an implementation engineer for a while, to understand, especially if you're interested in services, to be in those various services roles, to understand their challenges, to understand what makes them work well, what makes them work poorly, the kinds of different personalities, the opportunities that you can create, and then pursue that. Get into the various rungs of that leadership ladder. I tell you, it's a lot of empathy, like really understanding what it is the other side of the equation is going to find value in. There are entirely too many organizations that built out services that are fantastic, provide great value, have good outcomes, have great intentions, just A, not aligned to the organization that they belong to, or B, just not valuable to their customers. And so you can't, the incentive is then to, well, okay, maybe I just gotta market these better, or I just gotta get, salespeople to sell these things better. That's not how it works, right? It's finding and delivering true value that's aligned both to your customers and to the company that you're at.
It almost makes too much sense. It's about understanding the ecosystem and having empathy for your customer. That's a great word. From the blinged out sales rep stepping into a room full of maintenance weary and maybe even underpaid engineers, to the help desk tech scoffing about how someone keeps getting their password wrong.
Did you see the finance director? He had caps lock on. Again.
There's an epidemic lack of empathy in tech. This role tosses that bad habit, driving value by allowing the kind of professionals who will understand the customer's needs with empathy to imbue what they've learned into the organization's products and services. But even in such an important job, all roles come with pros and cons.
The best part is taking a bunch of services, walking into an organization that is doing things that is already successful, and identifying the ways that it can just, you can pour gasoline on that fire, right? To make that supercharged, make it just that much more incrementally awesome. The downside is you spend a lot of time, I don't know if it's a downside, but the downside is you could, ideally, you could walk into a place and go, everything's perfect here. I've not done that. I'd love to at some point, but not today. but it's a lot of analytical work. It's a lot of working on your own, pouring through hundreds of pages of technical descriptions, deliverables, talking to engineering, talking to customers about their experiences. Some of them are great, some of them not so great, and trying to figure out like, okay, what do I have? What can I achieve? How do I get there?
But what does the job landscape look like for those who hear RAF and say, I want to do that?
Not every organization have this. Some of these, like you have a VP of services, right, that essentially runs, is responsible for both the operationals and operations and strategy. So a lot of companies have to merge them together for cost reasons. I'm lucky enough to be in an organization that took operations and strategy and separated them, right, and make them equal parts. Because you've got to be able to have somebody that's kind of maniacally focused on turning that crank, making sure its delivery is perfect, numbers are met, right? Metrics are look good, customers are happy. And there's somebody that's got to look not at what's happening now, but what could be happening and looking down the road. I think in the future, I think more companies will end up with this type of role, perhaps, or at least this description in some other role that's strategic in the organization. Like there's a number of head of strategy or roles that are out there. I think as myself and peers are successful at creating this type of role, and being successful at it, I think there will be more of them. Moreover, I think more of these types of roles pop up in venture capital and private equity types of situations, because as a private equity investor, you're buying something and you go, that looks good. I mean, it's obviously not broken, right? It's doing well. How do I make it better?
So the job titles may come in different levels and flavors, but ultimately you're going to see more and more of these jobs pop up as folks like Raf continue to drive success. And success may be the key word to understand.
Boy, I think an interesting one is how do you measure success, right? I think that's an interesting one. Whatever role you work, how do you measure success? For me, we look at revenue growth. We look at customer satisfaction. We look at net promoter scores. So, and obviously staff utilization and product alignment. There is a lot of ways to measure this, but ultimately it's how well aligned are you to the company mission? How much have you improved the customer experience, and how much of the people around you like or dislike you? Frankly, it's those roughly those three components. It's a lot to juggle. It's leadership without a team necessarily, right? So this is a lead by influence type of role, where I can dictate like, hey, this group, you're now going to go do this versus this. But if they all quit, then I got no team. So it has to be a leadership by influence sort of role. It's a lot. Again, it's a ton of fun.
If you want to know more about Raf, look in the description below. You can find him online or on his podcast.
I can be found, easiest place, I guess, is on LinkedIn. You just Google my name. I have a pretty unique name. You can go check out the podcast, Down the Security Rabbit Hole podcast. You just could put that into LinkedIn. You can find us there. I'm on Twitter as TheWhiteRabbit, WH1T3RABBIT, but that's in the show notes. I'm in a lot of places, but most importantly, home more these days, which is kind of nice.